Welcome back. If you can't quite tell, it's fairly early morning right now. The sun is just coming out, being all pretty. So naturally I was like, yes, the lighting will be very strange, but perfect time to film a video. The decisions I make sometimes. But here we are. We're going to review a book. It'll be a really nice little one, I think, that I'm really excited to talk about. It's one that I found out about because I was I was listening to the podcast Desi Geek Girls, and they had an interview with the author of this book. I was like, what a cool story. I really want to read this book. And I actually thought of it as something that my dad might even like because he's a runner, which is kind of the topic of this book. But it's also a picture book, so I don't actually know if it's something my dad would be interested in. I thought it was not a picture book originally when they were discussing it. But here we are. We're going to be talking about Fauja Singh Keeps Going. This is the story of the oldest man to run a marathon. He was 100 years old and ran a marathon. He'd run marathons before that, but that's the cool part of the story, or the coolest part of the story. The whole thing is really cool. I don't know what I'm saying. The fun factoid, I guess, that inspired the book being written was that he was the oldest man. He set the record for the oldest man to run a marathon. So pretty cool stuff. So what this book is about is obviously about Fauja Singh. It starts out in his childhood and talks about how as a child he had some developmental difficulties and didn't walk until he was like 5, and even then had issues like maintaining things. Like by the time he was 15 he could walk a mile because he persevered and things like that. But that's what I mean by that, is that he was walking by the age of 5 but not walking well. But he, as the book says, Fauja did not listen anytime people were complaining at him, and Fauja did not stop. And that little mantra is repeated throughout the book, that Fauja did not listen and Fauja did not stop. And it's so good because he had so many critics in his life. Obviously, as a kid, people were saying, oh, you'll never amount to anything because you can't walk. And then, just things like that throughout his life. And so that little mantra repeating was like, oh, I don't have to listen to those people who complain about things about me. I can keep going, and I cannot stop. And I can be like Fauja Singh in that way. And it was really cool. I really loved that. Also, it was so inspiring because he didn't even start running until he was in like his 80s. He had moved to London or somewhere in the England area. I'm pretty sure they said London. But he'd moved there to be closer to his family, and he started running as a way to be around people, start connecting with people, make friendships, especially since he didn't speak a lot of English. It was a way to connect with people. So he started running, and he ran a marathon in London, and then he wanted to be an inspiration to people, so he signed up to run a marathon, or the New York Marathon, which is like the biggest marathon in the U.S., one of the biggest worldwide, I think was what they were saying too. And he was like, I am a Sikh, I wear like my turban and stuff, and I want to be an inspiration to people. So he wanted to go and show the world that like Sikhs can do that sort of thing, and it doesn't matter your age and all that kind of stuff. And he didn't do as well in the New York Marathon as he wanted. He ended up collapsing partway through, but he finished the race. He just didn't have a great time like he was hoping for. He'd been setting records and things in London, which was another part of the inspiration of wanting to be there and be like, look at all that we can do. And then alas and unfortunately, he had that go on. But he did not give up. He didn't listen to people who were saying he shouldn't run anymore and he couldn't run anymore. And he did not quit. He kept running, and he eventually was the oldest man to run a marathon. And at 100 years old, was running. Also, this book is really cute. It has this opening letter from Fauja as well, which is so sweet. So let's read the foreword together so you can kind of get a sense of this man's story. All my life, people set limitations on me. They said I would never walk. Then they said I would never farm. They certainly never thought I would set records with my running. No matter what people said, I always believed in myself. I knew my body better than anyone else. I knew what I was capable of. I kept trying. I never gave up. And I always held on to hope. I wish the people from my birthplace of Punjab could see me now. The boy they teased for not being able to walk became the oldest person to ever run a marathon. I was the first 100-year-old to ever run 26.2 miles. Doctors couldn't figure out why I had trouble walking as a child, nor could they figure out why I was able to begin walking and eventually running. I think of it as a reminder that all of our bodies are different, and so are our experiences with disabilities. I'm now 108 years old, which means I'm probably more than 100 years older than you. Can you believe that? My secret to a long and healthy life has been taking care of my mind, body, and soul. Every day I challenge myself to think, exercise, eat healthy, and pray. I have really enjoyed my long life and hope you have a long and happy life too. I'd love for you to take care of yourself, try your hardest, and always choose yes when you meet a challenge. And who knows, maybe one day you can break my record for the oldest person to ever run a marathon. Nothing would make me happier. I'm just crying, just at the thought of this. What an impressive man, and what an impressive story, and a lesson for us all to never give up, to always keep trying. Especially his reference in the letter to everyone's experience with disabilities. Obviously some of us have more obvious ones, like his as a child, not being able to walk and then not walk well and all that kind of thing. And some of us have the less visible disabilities, like mental health things can be a big disability for some people. And it's just nice that it's yeah, everyone has those struggles. But that doesn't mean we should listen to the people who doubt us. It doesn't mean that we can't keep going and keep trying, and we can accomplish our dreams. I didn't expect that I was going to cry quite this heavily for this, but there we are. It's a really emotional thought for me. And just to tag on to all of that this is a picture book that's meant to be for younger kids. What an inspiring story to share with kids, I obviously have been impacted by it, reading it as an adult. But the kids could grow up with this mindset because of this book. It's so cool to me. And I hope lots and lots of kids find this book and read it, and that they can develop that mindset because they were able to have that inspiration and access to that story at a young age. Since I'm just sobbing and breaking down now, I think that's about all I want or can say on the matter right now. But I really hope that you go out and read Fauja Singh Keeps Going, and or find a child to read it too. It's a really inspiring and beautiful book, and I highly recommend it. That's all I've got for now. This is Yumla Harper signing out.